Oh, sorry. What's up? Peace, Internet. I'm late today because I'm late. I slept in. Took my time. Um, I'm just here alone today. So there's no we, just me, you, we're hanging out. I've got a series of things to talk about, and I was late because I'm trying to collect everything together and actually look like I know what I'm talking about or sound like I know what I'm talking about. Some news, some things I'd like to actually read to you. It's going to be story time with Bret. The first thing is, hey, welcome to my show. This is something I do most Thursdays, almost every Thursday for 7 years now. So if you're just showing up, if you're like, what is this thing popping up in my YouTube recommendations? I wanted fun and entertainment, and all I got was this weird guy talking about nothing. Yeah, that's this show. So we talk about cloud native, we talk about Kubernetes, Docker, and now um, we're throwing AI into everything, of course, this year. So every topic has got to have some angle on AI, including a couple of things that we're doing this year. We've got, let's go over here. Let's go over to what this is. This is our latest podcast. So Nirmal and I are recording. Hey, if you haven't been here before, Nirmal's the co-host. Um, it's just me this week. He will be back. And we record episodes for a second podcast. So we have now two podcasts, DevOps and Docker Talk, which has been around forever and covers all of cloud native, all of the Kubernetes ecosystem, the container ecosystem, everything related to DevOps, essentially everything you do after commit. But we end up having a lot of people on the show that talk about dev tools that are before the commit. So I don't even know if we have a limit to what's on this show. Hey, what's up, Alex? Um, Glad you're here. So we're launching, you may have heard recently, we mentioned, we actually haven't officially launched this thing yet because we are waiting on releasing more episodes, which is, this is what happens when you do like 3 projects at once. It's hard to get anything to move fast. And that is always my fault. So that is me. All right. So we have this new podcast. And what is this podcast? This podcast, which I will be putting in the text chat so you can go check out. It is slightly different from our other one. In fact, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the two podcasts, but this one will only have episodes that are specific to using AI to do DevOps or platform engineering or SRE work. Basically, everything after the commit. If you're writing in an IDE with an AI, or if you're using AI agents to write code, that is not this podcast. I mean, we might cover it slightly on occasion, but this podcast is about the other half. The other half that we haven't, up until very recently, like within the last few months, no one has been talking about using AI for DevOps. I couldn't find conferences 6 months ago that were talking about it. In fact, if we go to KubeCon London just 3 months ago, and we search the entire timeline of London KubeCon, we will find a really great video, a really great talk um, from Jody Varney out of Cisco. And she does a great job. I love this talk, actually. I think I need to watch it again because it's what I always wish conference talks are about. It's like they get into the nitty gritty. There's lots of diagrams and explaining things that didn't work and why they even did this as a team and what their goals were and how the project went. And essentially, all of this was around the question, can we use AI and agents to do DevOps work, to do platform engineering? Is it good enough? And they focused on Terraform, which is cool. Like, that's a thing. And they essentially were trying to get AI to review Terraform PRs and weigh in on whether that work was good. I don't think they were actually writing the Terraform code with AI. It was almost like the opposite of what I would do. I'd have humans review and AI write. But they were trying to they were really focused on the problem set of getting AI to break down. We all think of a review as a relatively simple task of reviewing YAML or reviewing TOML or HAML or whatever language, HCL, JSON, whatever config language Docker files are their own language, so I don't even know what you would call that one, but like all these config files that we use for DevOps, and then review it, break down the responsibilities, because we all kind of think of a review as a single thing. And when you break it down to AI, which is kind of like what did a recent podcast tell me? It's like a child with amnesia. So to keep it on the rails, to keep it focused on the job, to break down the job into separate parts, and they have some great flow charts. This was a sort of they talked about the evolution. And they told a story. She told a story, and it was fantastic. We started out, we thought it was simple. We realized it wasn't simple, so we tried another version where we broke things out more, and that still didn't do the best job. So then we moved on from there. And finally, when you get near the end, not to spoil it for you, but this is like their vision for their future, and every one of these little boxes, I think maybe the green boxes, I'm not sure what the color coding is, but I think every one of the green boxes is a different agent, or at least a different, maybe the agent is the orchestrator up here at the top, but each box is sort of a different AI prompt going off and doing things. So you could think of them as different AIs all managed by a central thing. Anyway, super cool talk. We didn't get to really dig into like demos or anything, but I don't think it needed it because the story was so good, and just talking about the complexity of the problems, But anyway, people are talking about it now. So here's a link to that video. Let me get that over to you. This is a good video. So the point of that was that this is the only talk out of 400 talks across the entire week of KubeCon. If you included cloud native rejects, if you included the pre-confs, and then the 3 days of KubeCon, there's a lot of talks. And this is the only one I could find that was specifically trying to address the idea of using AI for DevOps. And I think that when we have KubeCon, I think that so much has happened in 3 months that, and I have no idea of what's going to happen. But when we get to Atlanta for KubeCon North America in 3 months, that there will be way more of this, maybe 10, 20x this talk. And it's going to be lots of teams saying, hey, we've been trying to use AI for platform engineering to, prompt our way to a Kubernetes platform. Or I built out my entire AWS infrastructure with prompting to Amazon's AI, basically their MCP server, which we have an episode coming out on. I'm excited to release that one. We have a podcast just for the Agentic DevOps podcast with Raj from AWS, as well as Nirmal from AWS, and we go through some of those examples. I'm very excited to release that one. That one should be in the next week or so. So anyway, get on this podcast, throw it in your podcast player. The videos will be here on the YouTube channel. So if you're subscribed to YouTube here, and you're liked and subscribed, right? You're liking and subscribing. That's how you thank us free content makers when we're making all this stuff for you, is you like and subscribe. That's your duty. That's your job, to like things, to comment. Like, you're doing us the work of engaging while we're doing the work of all the content making. And this silly system that we've designed over the last 15 years or 20 years of the internet it's a contract. You and I, we have a contract here where I do the work, but I need some confirmation. I need some feedback. And my sponsors need it too, because they're looking and they're noticing whether or not I have views, or whether or not I have likes or subscribers. And they will only pay me if we look like we know what we're talking about and people actually like it. So please do what you can. Anyway, this podcast is going to be on this channel as well. So you don't have to go anywhere if you just want to watch the YouTube videos. It's all here. I didn't make another channel. I just don't do that. I put it all here. It's easy. So you'll see some new content. In fact, if you come over, I mean, you wouldn't want to do this right now because you're watching the live thing, so it's much more interesting. But if you were to go later, you could actually find out that there's a podcast button over here, and then there's now two. So we got Agentic DevOps as the second podcast. You will also notice that as we start making episodes, at least I'm trying something. I'm trying something. I'm trying to make them all look similar. So we're going to try to make this look consistent across videos, so that when you're watching a video, you've got like a consistent theme and you understand. I'm still learning. Still trying to figure this stuff out. So that's that. That's Agentic DevOps. Go check it out. Tell me what you think. And of course, we have the Discord server. If you weren't aware, we have the other regular podcast that's been around forever. And all that stuff. And then we have the Discord server, which we just broke 23,000 members of the Discord server. 23,000. I'm very excited about that number. I don't like the trends recently. I don't know, Alex, or if any of you have been in Discord, but man, I feel like Discord as a whole is just under constant attack of more and more spammers, scammers. I mean, tricksters, just constant. I mean, every day I feel like I'm in there deleting people, removing spam posts. And it's just so frustrating because it felt like the one place for all those years, the good times. It felt like that one place where you didn't have to constantly look for trolls and, well, maybe not so much trolls, but spammers. And now it's a cesspool like everything else. Now it's like you got to weed through it. And so we do a great job, I think. Thank you to the volunteers. We have several people volunteering in the Discord server to keep things clean, keep things so that it looks like it's all real humans talking, which we don't really know, do we? We don't know if these are all real humans. We just hope they are. I think Chris is a real human. He seems humanish in his posts, but we just don't know anymore. So yeah, join our Discord server. That's the link right above me. That's where all the fun happens between Thursdays. And yeah, I'm pretty excited we got all those people. 23,000 people, at least 10 of them are human. I can guarantee there's 10 people I know in there I've met in real life. They have confirmed that they are indeed in the Discord server. So I can vouch for 10 or so people. But we got tons of channels. As you can see, I can't keep up. And our whole goal there is to help each other with DevOps. And the most common question is, how do I get started with DevOps? So I feel like, I don't know why I haven't done this, but I feel like I need to make a channel that's just called How to Get Started with DevOps. And then it's all the answers to all the questions. Now, there's infinity scrolling on Discord, so you can search back. So nowadays, we get kind of lazy, and people, when they ask the questions, I just say, just search here, man. Search. Like, there's all the answers already. Like, we've been answering for 6 years now. So chances are those answers are still correct. But if you're not in the Discord, get in there. We love hanging out in there. It's a lot of fun. Okay. New topic. Any questions? Okay. New topic. I'm going to talk about Swarm for a minute because I've got some good news. You Swarm people, you've been waiting for some good news. And now we have it. Okay. So Swarm, recently, a couple months ago, early 2025, there was an article, well, more like a release note that came out from Morantis. Oh, and you don't know about Morantis? Okay, so let's catch you up. 30 seconds. Put it on the clock. Go. Okay. Docker back in 2019 sold all their enterprise assets, all their enterprise software on a ton of their people. Majority of the staff, all were sold to Morantis. Docker decided to go back to its roots and build developer tooling only and not focus on orchestration and production servers. They tried to get away from that. And Swarm was a part of that. Swarm wasn't sold because it's open source, so the copyrights are still owned by Docker. Again, Morantis only took the closed source bits, which had nothing to do with Swarm, other than the fact that there is this thing, or was this thing, called Docker Enterprise, which was Kubernetes plus Swarm, all in a giant orchestration system with lots of features around secure registries and scanning and all that stuff. And they sold that to Morantis. Fast forward 6 years later, Morantis is still supporting Swarm. They have enterprise customers. People are paying for support of Swarm. And we've all been waiting for some big announcement or some big, they've added features. They've added new storage support. kind of like with Kubernetes, CSI, and that's kind of rolling along. It's not as awesome and as big. It's kind of sort of like a point 0.5 release or a 1.0 release. I wouldn't call it a beta because it does work, but um, there have been things that have happened in Swarm. So people have been looking for the big sign of, can I rely on Swarm? And earlier this year, there was a sign that was the opposite of that. Portainer pointed out that they found in the recent Morantis release notes um, particular words that implied, or if you tried to read the tea leaves, they kind of suggested that um, people would no longer be getting Swarm updates in the paid enterprise portal orchestrator thing, and that it was only going to be Kubernetes going forward. And then so Portainer, another company that can manage Kubernetes and Swarm and Docker, and they love Swarm over at Portainer too, was sort of calling attention to these release notes and asking questions that at the time no one had answers to. I did a video on that. That is actually over here. Wait, yeah, over here. It was called "Is Swarm End of Life?" I read through this, tried to interpret it. I reached out to Morantis. I talked to Docker maintainers. I talked to Morantis maintainers, Swarm maintainers, Morantis, people in charge of Morantis, people in charge of product, and tried to figure out what was going on. And everything I heard, everything from internal to Docker to internal Morantis was the message that Swarm is fine, Swarm works. We're still supporting it. It ships with every version of Docker. It ships with every version of Morantis runtime, and we still all like it. We're just not growing the team to build it. We're not expanding its functionality at a rapid pace. It's not a majority of revenue of the businesses anymore. So it's not dead, but it's not nobody believed that it was going to be pulled out. In fact, I think some of paraphrasing quotes were things like a maintainer saying, "There's really no reason for us to pull out Swarm out of Docker Engine. It would be a lot of work to do that, and then we would have to declare to everyone that this is no longer there. It would basically be a whole bunch of work for not really any benefit, because they still patch all the code. They still have to maintain any CVs that show up. So SwarmKit, the library, and then there's networking libraries and other things that come into Docker Enterprise, or sorry, not Docker Enterprise, Docker Engine to maintain Swarm. And then some of the great Swarm community we have in Discord were pointing out that there's been some challenges lately with DNS and networking and weird quirks, and it looks like that's getting worked on and that's getting fixed. In fact, if you were in our Discord server, there was a conversation specifically on, honestly, with Swarm. If there's ever going to be bugs or quirks with the people that I see, it's typically revolves around the overlay networking that's built in and something going awry there. Eventually, I hear tons of stories over the years, not tons, I mean, on occasion, stories around long-running Swarm clusters either losing track of other nodes or DNS entries of other containers on different nodes around the cluster, or possibly not even being able to communicate with nodes anymore. It feels like networking gets lost down a bit bucket, or certain things happen with DNS that causes what's called gossip network. Sounds like a very great thing that you want to have in a cluster, a gossip network. Though these things were problematic at times for certain peoples at certain scales. Well, there was a conversation that people are noticing. Good news, and thanks, Martin, for pointing this out in chat. Good news, there's lots of pros around networking in Moby that target the issues we have raised on logging and overlay networking. And then, so that all happened actually yesterday. People were noticing that. And then yesterday, I noticed a brand new post, which is even more good news. So, over at Morantis, about every year, they post something about they're going to keep maintaining Swarm. Basically, a commitment to say, hey, Swarm fans, we hear you. We're still taking support money from you. In fact, I've heard from people that pay Morantis for support, and they're both fine with Swarm, happy to use Swarm in certain occasions. They might also have Kubernetes in other occasions, still using Swarm. They're happy to pay Morantis support for it to have enterprise support. They get on the phone with Morantis. They talk about that they have good support. They feel confident in it, but they also are reading tea leaves and want to be certain that the future of Swarm, at least as far out as we can all see, is going to be maintained or supportable. And, nobody is expecting promises of future features. People just want to make sure this thing is going to still work in 2 years. So we created a GitHub repo awesome list a few years back. So I keep track of all the news. And the last time we've heard anything from Morantis, other than like the release notes reading in the tea leaves, is I think in 2024, so December of last year. So it's been 6 months. And Morantis tends to go 6 months or a year in the last 5 years before announcing, hey, just a reminder, we're still maintaining Swarm. We still think it's great. So they've got another post as of yesterday. And this is a pretty good one because I feel like they're announcing 5 more years of support for Swarm. So I think when they first did this in 2019 or 2020, I think they announced 2 or 3 years of support. If I go back, I'm trying to remember. Committed to Swarm. Let's see. There was something around 2 years or for the next 3 years, for at least the next 3 years. This was in 2022. So that would be 3 more years. And so that's today. That's now. April 2025 would be 3 years later. And it took them till January or July. But they posted on July 1st. Swarm container orchestration is simple, powerful, and compatible with tooling and workflow developers know in their bones. Morantis will support Swarm on its Morantis Kubernetes Engine 3 dual orchestrator, Kubernetes plus Swarm, platform through 2030. So we now have 5.5 years of promised support for enterprise Swarm, which implies that the open source Swarm that most of us use in Docker or in Morantis runtime, you can use either. Well, actually, Morantis runtime, I'm not sure if that's fully open source. So the Docker engine is open source. And it's all upstream, right? So Docker Engine's upstream from Morantis. Morantis is probably, you could call that upstream from the Morantis Kubernetes engine. And this particular product, this one where it's the combo of Kubernetes and Swarm, that's the same core product that I understand that came out of Docker and Docker Data Center and Docker Enterprise. They renamed it a couple times. That goes all the way back to like 2015, 2016. And I was one of the early beta deployers of Docker Data Center before, when it was in beta. We were actually deploying it at large clients. And I think at the time we were like one of the first largest purchases of Docker Enterprise before it was even called Docker Enterprise. I think it was called Docker Data Center. And anyway, so way back then we were doing this. Well, let's keep going. Swarm continues to offer a powerful value proposition for organizations that need to simplify. Oh, I'm sorry. That needs simplicity, speed, and operational efficiency in container orchestration. It enables teams to move fast, deploy with confidence, and maintain uptime, all without the complexity of managing Kubernetes control planes or custom resource definitions. That's why we're making a long-term commitment to Morantis Kubernetes Engine version 3. That was the version that was in question at the beginning of the year. So me and others provided feedback to Morantis saying, hey, your naming is kind of confusing because you've released this new version 4 of MKE, and you're saying version 3, which we all would assume is now deprecated or archived. But that turned out to not really be the case. It was sort of a naming challenge for them, and version 3 is going to be maintained. So version 3 is our flagship container orchestration platform. Swarm will be fully supported through at least 2030, and Morantis will continue to provide first-class support for both Kubernetes and Docker Swarm. Why Swarm still matters. MKE 3 is the most scalable, reliable, and secure platform on the market for orchestrated container workloads on both Kubernetes and Swarm in a single solution. It's trusted by hundreds of customers worldwide to power their mission-critical infrastructure from cloud-native microservices to distributed edge deployments. If we look into that number hundreds and try to read some of that, when Docker sold to Morantis, there was a belief that it was around 700 customers of Swarm or of Docker Data Center that they were moving over to Morantis. So still hundreds. I'm just noticing they didn't say thousands. Doesn't sound like they've 10x the business yet. We continue to see widespread adoption of Swarm across verticals like manufacturing, financial services, energy, and defense, especially in environments where operational predictability and low overhead are non-negotiable. Many developers using Docker also prefer Swarm to enable a simple, seamless workflow from desktop to production. For these use cases, Swarm remains a vital tool in container orchestration toolbox. Additionally, MKE3 features both FIPS 140-2, validated encryption, and the DISA STIG compliance. And we continue to get new inquiries from U.S. federal agencies as well as organizations in other highly regulated industries. This is actually true going all the way back to 2018, 2017. I would go to Docker's Federal Summit, which was in Washington, D.C., or it was in the D.C. metro area. And so we'd get a lot of federal agencies from the U.S. that would come in interested in Docker. This was early days, right? 2017. This was back when Kubernetes in production was still, you were still very leading edge if you were doing that, right? And the agencies were trying to figure out how to use orchestration because they were really liking Docker, but they needed something to handle many servers. And so their problem is at the time, Kubernetes wasn't yet approved for most government agencies. And they didn't, the Kubernetes ecosystem hadn't matured to the point that there was all these different official vendors with stable products that they felt reliable. But they had approved for Docker Engine. And so the Docker Engine was inside of these orchestration or inside of these servers already in these government agencies. And so those of us that were several of us that were captains who were fans of Swarm would go around in the conference and say, hey, I know you don't get to have Kubernetes yet, but you actually already have an orchestrator. It's actually built into Docker Engine. All you got to do is Docker Swarm init, and boom, you can do 70% of what Kubernetes could do at the time or whatever, right? It was early days, but we were excited to sneak it in through the back door because they just really wanted to solve problems with containers. And they were just feeling limited by their purchase decisions and their approval decisions. And they had Docker. So Morantis in this 2025 document is sort of confirming that that's still the case. Like there are still occasions where adding all these different products to Kubernetes to make it work isn't necessarily necessary when you're maybe using it on manufacturing equipment and you maybe do something very simple. I've heard that also from Portainer, who has enterprise customers, machine transportation customers, stuff like that, and they're also confirming that there are use cases where Kubernetes is still too heavyweight, still too many hardware requirements and complexity requirements, and they just need, essentially, like what Swarm is, a single binary that runs the container engine, runs the orchestration engine, runs the secret storage database, maintains all the networking connections and the DNS and all of that, all in a single binary. Anyway, moving on. Hey, what's up, Memphis? Got a Swarm fan in here from Twitch. What's up? All right. Now this is interesting because this is looking ahead, and I wanted to know some of my biggest issues with Swarm and beefs with Swarm haven't necessarily been addressed, and I'm always hoping that Morantis will address them. One of them is the YAML diversion or the bifurcation of the YAML spec between Compose and Swarm, and they're getting farther apart, and it's unfortunate because originally the whole idea was that the YAML spec used for Compose will also be usable in Swarm, and that's no longer the case, which is fine from an enterprise deployment perspective because we weren't really using Compose files locally and then just throwing those into a cluster in production. They were usually different files, but at least the spec and the functionality was very similar, so we didn't have to learn two standards. I guess that's the problem. And then my other beef with that is that standard hasn't really moved forward, so we still don't have a Swarm API to talk directly to a stack, which is essentially what Kubernetes YAML is. It's a stack of different resources that you can shove into one thing and deploy all at the same time. Well, we don't technically have that on the Swarm API yet. I keep asking for it. I keep hoping, but it's open source, so PRs are welcome. So stateful workflows with CSI support. To extend Swarm's utility, we've invested in support for the Container Storage Interface, or CSI, with MKE3. This enables Swarm users to run stateful workflows like databases, data pipelines, and AI inference servers with persistent storage backends by enterprise-grade systems. With CSI support, you don't need to switch to Kubernetes just to gain storage orchestration. Swarm users can now run modern, data-heavy applications with the same simplicity and resilience they've always counted on. I want to pause on CSI for a second because it turns out that this maybe is a little bit more hand-wavy marketing, because in order for this new CSI functionality in Swarm to be taken advantage of, CSI providers or storage providers have to update their drivers, essentially, or their plugins, to work with Docker Engine and Swarm. And as far as I know, most of them have not done that. But we are trying, we meaning the community. So if you know of anything, please throw in an issue or a PR over here. Where did they go? Where did my GitHub go? Oh, this one. I will post this in chat. And if you know of anything that's not on here, and the whole goal, by the way, of this awesome Swarm list on GitHub is to track what currently works and is still supported, because there's a decade of Swarm stuff out there. We even had a version of Swarm before Swarm called Swarm Classic, and that's not really the same thing. It was a bolt-on add-on to Docker Engine. It's not been supported in a long time, but it's not compatible with what we called Swarm mode, or now just Swarm. And all of these things, have cycles, and companies came in and built stuff for Swarm, and then when Kubernetes won in the popularity contest, they removed their Swarm support. So then things broke over time that we thought were working. So I've tried to maintain this this Swarm awesome list, and not just news, but also official sources of documentation, places to go for questions and answers and chat, like my Discord server, and then places where you can find tooling that still works for cluster management. We've got extra on top functionality, GUIs and the like. And then we come to the CSI support. So the community's really helped here in finding all the different things that you would maybe want to use for storage, and finding out if they have updated their tool for Swarm, because most vendors are not paying attention to Swarm anymore. So we've got to tell them we would love to use their storage, but they've got to support Swarm and Docker Engine. So that's slowly happening over the last few years as CSI was officially added. I feel like CSI, yeah, was added in 2023. So it's been a couple of years, and there's been some progress, but I wouldn't say it's like you can assume that everything just works. So I'm very curious to see how people are doing this in production and how they're trying to use CSI in production with Swarm. I've only had a few people come back to me and give me stories around what works and what doesn't for them, or what they're using. To be fair, for years now, ever since like 2019, 2018, I've generally been telling people, if you need to support volumes in Swarm that move across node, that's when you need to go to Kubernetes. I basically have been saying that because that was a rough area, and to watch people struggle through it, trying to get Swarm to work with moving database files from one node to another, it didn't work well. There was old open source plugins like RexRay that were slowly degraded over time because they were archived and not maintained. And so I've generally just not felt comfortable advising people that they should go to production with Swarm if they need volume support that is cross-node. So in those cases, usually what I tell people to do is, if you have to run databases or anything with volume storage, then you're just going to have to pin that storage to a particular node, and you just have to know that when that node goes down, you lose the storage, which means if you're running databases, you need to run a traditional database mirror, and just treat that like an old school database mirror where they are pinned to nodes. And so now you have this sort of imperfect cluster where nodes are special, but at least you can do it, right? The rest of your apps can all run and move around and as nodes fail. But these two nodes, these two database nodes are very special. And your alternative there would be to just, my general recommendation is, if you're in the cloud, just use the cloud databases and then use Swarm for all of your non-persistent data needs. And here we are, right? The last little bit I'm going to read is the looking ahead. So let's hope. I should have been zoomed down here, by the way. Looking ahead, we're not just maintaining MKE3, we're investing in it with a roadmap that stretches through 2030. I'd love to see that roadmap. Can we have that roadmap? If it's open source, can we at least have the open source roadmap? I think that would give people a lot of confidence that not just, oh yeah, it'll be maintained if you pay us, but also, hey, look, there's actually some things in Swarm open source that we're working on, like fixing the networking or adding API support for stacks or improving the CSI support. Because originally, when it first released 2 years ago, I was told by maintainers, at least one maintainer, that this is kind of like a beta 1.0 trial thing. Like we need to put more into it. So where is that? What's happening with that? So I'd love to see some status on that. So with a roadmap that stretches through 2030, Morantis is giving customers the long-term stability and strategic flexibility they need to build confidently with Swarm. We've needed that confidence for a decade. Docker has never had a Swarm page on their website. It's only mentioned in the docs, never on the website. At least Morantis has a Swarm page somewhere. I know it's there. I know it's somewhere in there. Whether you're deploying at the edge, in the data center, or across multi-cloud environments, MKE3 lets you choose the right orchestrator for the job without compromise. Yeah, so a lot of marketing fluff in there, but essentially, I think the key takeaway is they have committed to 5.5 more years of Swarm support, and they have stated publicly that they have Swarm features coming. We will have to hope that those Swarm features are still in the open source, which, to my knowledge, almost always is true. Like, I'm actually having a hard time coming up with anything other than compliance, military government compliance stuff that isn't in Docker Engine Swarm open source, right? So we have to kind of assume, I would assume at this point, that if any features are added to Swarm, including improvements to CSI, it would still roll upstream to Docker Engine, which means all of us Swarm open source people are going to benefit from the people paying Morantis for Swarm support, which is one of the best ways that we got to maintain open source in the world. Is people pay for support. That support money drives innovation in the open source product, which goes back to people using it who then want support. And that way has worked for a long time. Red Hat was built on it. Ubuntu, I mean, all the major distributions, all the major Kubernetes distributions, including Red Hats and Ranchers and everyone else, they're all built on that model of paid support, open source, primarily open source. So, yay, we can celebrate. If you're a Swarm user, I now am changing my opinion from 2 years, I'm now changing my opinion from 3 months ago, that I was like, might be time to move on. No, you're fine. Stay where you're at. If Swarm works for you, keep doing it. You have my permission. Not that you needed it, but you now have it. And if you don't want to use Swarm, totally fine. I'm not advocating for Swarm everywhere. In fact, I don't run Swarm anymore because I'm just one person. And I don't want to maintain servers and patch OSs and reboot servers and replace instances. I just don't. So I use all the cloud stuff, all the things where I can just run a one-line command or throw in my container environment variables and just have it run containers natively. Google Cloud Run, Amazon, let's see, AWS is 18 ways to run containers. Like, there's all these other ways to run containers that don't require me to deploy my own servers on their cloud, maintain those servers, patch those servers, secure those servers, monitor those servers. There's so many other ways of higher level abstraction that I do that. But it doesn't mean that everyone has to do that. And it doesn't solve on-prem problems or edge cases where you don't have those. So I think that if you have very minimal needs and you don't need the complexity of Kubernetes, like, Swarm is back. Swarm is back, baby. It's back. What do you want from me? Like, this is the best we've ever had it. We have a Swarm page. Let's do Morantis. Let's look for Morantis Swarm. We have an actual Swarm homepage. We didn't have that at Docker. Nope. Docker never committed to 5 years of maintaining Swarm. Docker never stated publicly that they even care about Swarm, other than the original announcement. And then, like, the paid enterprise products that they had up until 2019. But ever since 2019, you've never heard a Docker employee that I'm aware of. I'm just going to go out and say it. I've never heard a Docker employee state anything publicly about Swarm, other than the fact that it exists. Like, they'll confirm that it exists. But we've never gotten certainty. We've never gotten commitment from Docker. And that's all that people were asking for. Like, they were just asking, hey, if I deploy this open source, and yes, it's free, I get it, is there some indication that it will still exist and not be archived as a project in 6 months? And I think we have it. Like, this is the best scenario. And we might be past the peak Kubernetes hype cycle, right? We might be on that bell curve of hype. We might be over it. Some people are in that trough of disillusionment or whatever. Like that's fine. But, people have figured out Swarm and people have figured out Kubernetes, and they figured out that maybe they don't need it all the time. Or maybe they could do both. Maybe Swarm is so simple that in some cases, I just don't deploy more Kubernetes. Maybe I deploy some Swarm. And there's no shade here. I'm not hating on any product or any open source. Like, this is all best effort. But Morantis has given us that level of certainty that we never really had with Docker, and I really, really appreciate that of them. So what do I know in addition to those facts? Like, I now have multiple people inside of Docker and Morantis, the companies that work around Swarm or related to Swarm, and they're all interested in it. They're all curious about the community feedback. So if you have contracts with any of these companies, always let them know that you're interested in Swarm. Even if you're not running it, just tell them, hey, we're always curious whether Swarm has added more functionality to solve problems so that we don't need Kubernetes. Wouldn't it be wild if a decade after Swarm was released and after Kubernetes rose to prominence, that we all kind of looked at Kubernetes and went, yeah, that's really cool and it does really cool things, but now that, maybe there's budget cuts and AI maybe changes some things. Maybe I don't need all this complexity, and maybe some of the things I do, I can get away with simpler stuff. And then we end up having a Swarm resurgence. If you don't know the history of Swarm with me and the relationship I have with it, I have 2 courses that teach Swarm on Udemy. So you can, in this video, you can go down the description. There's a link to my courses. You can go there and buy either my Docker Mastery course, which also teaches Swarm, or the Swarm course, which has a full Swarm walkthrough. I mean, it's many hours of Swarm. And so I've been a big fan of it for specific simple use cases. I've run it myself in production on the internet for years. I've helped many companies deploy it over the years. Even the old Swarm Classic, I helped a couple of companies deploy that before the modern Swarm came out, Swarm Mode. So I've always been a fan of it for people that have simple uses. And I'm excited to see that there's a team willing to go out there on the internet and say, yep, if you pay us, we will still support you, and we are still investing in this open source project. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we have some clarity on this, and that there's a company willing to step out there, especially considering all this AI shakeup. Like, we're all just consumed with AI right now. So I think a lot of vendors are just scared to commit to anything, because who knows where they're going to be in 12 months. Maybe all this stuff is irrelevant and AI DevOps becomes a thing and the AI will just run all the Kubernetes for us. So we don't need other alternatives, because maybe the AI knows Kubernetes so well that it makes all the hard things simpler. I don't know that it's going to solve the resource problem, but the server resource problem of Kubernetes, but we can hope. All right. That's Swarm. Any questions? Max, what's up? Compose and Swarm fans are eating good this year. Oh, thanks, Memphis. I appreciate that. I'm glad you learned some stuff. I learned stuff just to teach you all. Like, in the act of learning things that I want to tell others about, I actually learned more than I intended. So there's like what do they say? If you want to know something, well, teach it. Like, teach someone else that thing, and that is true, because being confident enough to teach someone something does definitely, at least for me, requires me to know a lot more than I would normally know, because I don't want to sound dumb. I don't want to sound silly. Nuno is back. What's up, Nuno? Big shout out to my captain, and such good news for Swarm. Like Mini Swarm has a special place in my heart, and by today's standards, if a modern CNI could be used, then more companies would check. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would take. I mean, we have had. It's not technically CNI, right? But we had the alternatives to the built-in overlay networking. By the way, you can use Swarm without the overlay networking. But I think the only one that I really was paying attention to was CNI. It wasn't CNI because Swarm has never had CNI compatibility. But I can't think of the name of it. There was a third-party one that was also a virtual Ethernet tunnel-based overlay style, and I cannot think of the name of it. Someone in chat's going to tell me any moment now. But there's technically been abilities for us to swap out, right? We do have such a thing as Swarm networking drivers. So we still have hope that maybe someone will use AI to write a new library that plugs into Docker Engine and provides additional functionality over top of the Swarm overlay. To be fair, the Swarm overlay actually works really well most of the time. The problem is when it doesn't, it's a black box. It's kind of hard to figure out where to troubleshoot or what to do. I tend to just do things like remove nodes from clusters and add them back, or tear them down and rebuild them. That tends to fix things, but it's not really a great troubleshooting strategy most of the time. Sometimes it's the fastest to fix things, but it's not always great. So I do think that the overlay magic box of how DNS work, how the gossip network works, all that tunneling stuff, it can be a little too magical for some. And it would be nice if we had a more Kubernetes style, like kubeproxy sort of non-overlay networking style that reduced the magic a little bit, so that we just have normal IP subnets, and then we're not natting everything, and then we're not tunneling everything. That would be a pretty cool scenario. And but it also, the DNS still worked, right? So we still got all the benefits. But yeah, we can hope. We can hope. All right, moving on from Swarm. Thank you. Okay, remember to drink my tea. Tea while it's still warm. I feel British when I drink this. Do I look British? I feel like I'm channeling my British friends. You know who you are out there. All right. Next topic. All right. I am starting something new. Now I don't have to read the tea leaves. Oh, boy. First joke of the day. Good job, Max. Check this out. All right. So something I've been tracking, and we're going to do some announcements. We've talked about Agentic DevOps podcast. There's a theme this year to everything I'm doing, and that is AI, like everyone else. I mean, why put my head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist? I'm using it every day. Every product I have has it built in. When can I use it for DevOps? When can I use it for DevOps? So one of the things I've been doing is throughout the year, I've been trying to start tracking more and more the things that are happening that I think are relevant to DevOps, or anyone who's in platform engineering or operations, cloud ops, data center ops, anything post commit. I've been trying to track stuff that I think is relevant. I don't know why. I think it was more because I kept having to reference things when I would tell people stories so I'd be like, oh yeah, that's that video that I watched and told us about this and that. And then I would forget who it was or what video it was. So I just started tracking it, right? And then we released the podcast, right? So part of what this podcast is hopefully going to be about, and I'm not normally a news guy, but Nirmal and I, we actually tried once to do some news a couple weeks ago, and recorded a news segment, and I just went off the. I went down rabbit holes that I was not prepared. I was not prepared. Okay, and so we didn't have a great show. So I'm going to re-record some of that, and maybe we'll talk about some of it now. But I wanted to start doing some news segments when relevant on the Agentic DevOps podcast, specifically around AI news that would affect DevOps people. I don't care about what models are released necessarily. Like, there's a few topics I'd love to talk about specific to models, but most of that stuff is just noise to me. Like, I don't care if Claude Sonnet 4 is better than GPT 4.1 at whatever. Like, it's a rat race. I'm not trying to be in there, and there's 1,000 other podcasts and videos to tell you all that stuff, right? I'm not going to be that guy. But when I find useful ways to use AI for DevOps, I want to talk about it. I want to share the news, share the successes, and share the failures. So you heard me talk. The first thing was we talked earlier about the one video from KubeCon, the one that I think was a great one. Scroll up in chat if you missed that. I guess I'll post that again since I'm just mentioning it now. I'll post that in chat. So watch that. That's like the one KubeCon talk around basically how hard it is to try to get an AI to be reliable in automated PRs, PR reviews specifically for Terraform. So that's cool. We've got multiple companies working on that. We've got Dagger working on that, which is an episode we also have coming out. So if you jump on the Agentic DevOps podcast, available in all the podcast players today, episodes we got coming up are one with we're going to be talking about using MCP to build AWS infrastructure with two AWS engineers, Raj and Nirmal. We have an episode with Solomon Hykes, the founder of Docker and now Dagger, talking about Dagger and containerizing AI agents to protect us from their crazy maneuvers. I think one actually just recently broke my Mac because suddenly I noticed this week that Node was gone from my machine. And I use Node all the time, and I don't know how that happened. So I'm going to blame AI because I've been like the rest of us. I've been using things like Claude Desktop and Agent Mode, and now I'm using the new Warp Terminal. Oh my goodness, have you met the Warp Terminal 2.0? It is my favorite new way to do everything AI. It is awesome. I'm just so happy for that team. Like, what a product. What a great product. I love it. It's a great terminal. It's gotten better. It wasn't my default terminal even up until just 2 weeks ago because it wasn't that much better than iTerm or Ghosty or any of the other ones we all use. It wasn't that awesome. It was more or less the same thing. It had a different look and style, and it would mess with your prompt, and I wasn't crazy about that. But now I can do things like I can type a code, a shell command. I can type a shell command, or I can type a prompt. What is the purpose of this repo? And I can do it all in the shell line, and it's so cool. And I can have agents running I can have multiple ones. I can bring up a second one, and ask it a different AI question, and have them both working at the same time. I could have one being the AI agent just doing its thing, and then the other tab or other shell, I'm doing the actual human stuff where I'm looking at things and I'm editing things, and I'm doing stuff, and the AI is working in the background. Like, this is exactly like I honestly I just don't want to use any other tools right now. And it has a built-in editor, which I don't really need, but it is very cool that the minute you ask it to change something. Anyway, I'm totally distracted, but you should go check out Warp 2.0. I will give you the launch video over here on YouTube. Because let's see, where's the long one? Yeah, this is a long one. So they go through a walkthrough. It's a great little video. They worked on the high production quality, the stuff that we've sort of gotten used to with the AI companies. But Warp is now Warp is my jam. And you tell me, have you looked at this? Do you care? Are you just a Claude all day? I just want to use Claude. So like this is better for vibe coding. I mean, vibe coding. Yeah, like everyone else, it's a cringy word, whatever. But you know what I mean now, right? Because you know what that means. So If I'm going to be editing a lot and I just want a tab complete, then this is probably not the setup for you. You probably still need to stick with the full IDE. But for me, a lot of times I'm 80 or 90% AI code now, so I just need to check things. And to be fair, I'm not writing production quality code for a enterprise company. I'm writing demos and samples and utilities for myself, like um, you know, over here, I've got something I'm creating called Release Pod, which is just like hobby projects that I never spent time on before because it would have been too time consuming. But I want a product that will go and find every one of my cloud native favorite repos, projects, and then give me the latest updates of what that project has had. But I want it to do it in audio, and I want it to be a summary, and I want it to be all of the projects. So if I throw in 40 project URLs for my favorite 40 CNCF projects, I want a single audio podcast every week that I can listen to know what happened in that project. And I'm building that with 99% AI. So I'm calling that Release Pod. I don't. It's not public yet. I don't think because I haven't even got it to really work. But um, that's something I'm playing with, and I want to release that. And I was using an IDE, but now I'm doing it in Warp because the reality is I'm just reviewing code most of the time. And the cool thing in here is that when it reviews, it shows you the change diff, and then you can edit the diff before it applies it. So it's a little bit of a different workflow. I'd call it like a shell first workflow versus all the IDE stuff, which is like the traditional IDE with AI bolted on, right? So it's most of your screen, primarily everything's designed in your screen for you to be editing files and looking at files. But, a lot of times it's maybe editing 3 files, and in one file it's editing 2 lines, in file it's editing 3 lines, another file it's editing 100 lines. And with a traditional IDE, I have to kind of go through the tabs, or I have to, depending on whether you're using Cursor or VS Code, you have to kind of click the next button to go to the next change and approve it, next change, approve it, next change, approve it. And here it's all in a stream, right? It's just flowing from bottom to top. It starts with you're always at the bottom, your prompt is at the bottom. That's the default functionality. And I'm just finding myself never leaving it. I do my NeoVim in here. I do like if you scroll up, this is just me doing standard normal shell work. But if I jump over here, I'm going to actually leave. You can see that I'm talking with the AI. It's implementing changes. And this is part of a new course I'm building. Okay, so we're going to talk about that for a second. That's a teaser, but I'm launching the waitlist today. And you would know if you'd have read the description because the description has a link to the waitlist. But you can see here, this is kind of like a mini window in a window where this is the plan it created, and I don't even know where that goes because that's not even like that's the plan in Markdown, but it didn't write that to disk, so it just stored that somewhere. And then it's you see all the commands it's running, and then the code it changed, and then actually that's maybe the code it read. And then I'm doing some regular shell stuff. So it's all in one stream. It's not separate windows. One's the editor, one's the the shell, and they're in separate parts of my screen, and I'm interacting back and forth, back and forth. It's all in like this giant history of things that I did, things the AI did, things we did together, and this makes complete sense to me. And I've used Goose and Cursor and Windsurf and Copilot for a long time. I have Copilot built into my NeoVim because I like in my NeoVim now to have all that stuff. But this, man, I was not a Warp fan. I mean, it was fine. I didn't hate it. I just didn't use it. And now it's all I want. I mean, I'm ready to sign up. Take my money. It's $20 a month, but right now I'm on the free monthly plan. I think it only under here it shows you billing, and I've only been using it for a week. The usage is not. I mean, I'm not 8 hours a day on this, right? So let's just say I'm an hour or two a day using it, and I'm still on the free plan. So I can upgrade to get more usage. I don't even know what that is. It's not tokens. I think it's requests. And then it's resetting in a couple of days. So I'm going to get a whole another 150. So, I will probably pay them because I may stop paying for Cursor or Windsurf, um, just because this is so good. Copilot can do some things in GitHub that you can't really get otherwise, but you can kind of. They've all got their own competitive advantage, right? But this one, if you haven't tried it out, and you're primarily more like if your job isn't just writing code, but you're also spending a lot of time at the shell anyway, because maybe you're a DevOps person and you're doing things like Terraform, you're doing kube controls and all that stuff, and you're finding the IDE the imperfect place for all of that. Check out Warp 2.0. It is a substantial upgrade, and I can't shut up about it because it's my new fave. It's my new fave right now. So ask me questions. Ask me for demos. I will happily show you things if you have questions. But I didn't even plan on doing a demo here, but you can just kind of see what I actually was working on a landing page revision for this course that I haven't told you about yet. And you can kind of see me. It's actually kind of hard to scroll. So because these are like windows inside the windows, so the AI. How do I scroll past this? Oh, is it two windows? I got two windows. I need to change my. I don't like. I need to like find a new theme because that theme is just a little. Ooh, no, God. I need something other than dark. This is just too dark. I need. Oh, here we go. Dracula. Ooh, I'm kind of digging that. Fancy Dracula. All right, let's do say it. No, I don't want gradient. I'm a solarized guy. Let's do solarized. Okay, so that maybe makes this a little easier to read, in terms of what, because you got these like weird windows, like my prompts at the bottom, which is also the shell command, and then I have scroll back, but then in certain segments, you can scroll inside the segment. So like this. Oh, I must have two windows here. That's what this is. So I've got. Let me exit that one. All right, so this maybe makes more sense. But yeah, so whenever it does things, it sometimes has this scroll in. So like this is wild, right? Like I'm scrolling in a shell. I think, can I Yeah, I can minimize that, and then I can expand the next one. And this is what Warp was doing in 1.0, and I found it annoying in 1.0. This is the hilarious part. Like a lot of these things existed before AI in Warp, and I hated it. I was confused by it. It was foreign. But now that I'm conversing with the AI and we're working together, sorry, you can't actually see over here on the right. So there's these little arrows, and you can see the history of it doing things, and then when it's done, I can minimize it there. So anyway, give it a shot. It is my new thing. Yeah, how do you see the latest state of things quickly in there? Yeah, so I mean, everything is linear, so uh it does in a single window, single tab, single pane. Everything flows normally like you would have, from top to bottom. So if I type something here and then I say, so I think it does maintain state. So I just asked it, remind me what we've worked on lately in this directory. Um, so I don't know if it looks back at the history that we've been working on here. That's a great question that I have for myself. But you can see that it's down here thinking at the bottom, and so it will flow this way, and you won't necessarily seeing it flow in multiple places at the same time. But I can. So think of this as one agent, and actually up in the top, which you can't see with that screen, up at the top here, you can see the agents that are running. So one is over here. Well, no, that one looks done. It looks like, it's acting as if there's one still running. And I'm not sure what that is. That looks like a bug. I'm not sure why that's like that. But if I have multiple agents in different tabs or different panes working, I can see them all up there at the top, and then I can switch to them by clicking on them. And then over here, I can always create another pane. Oops, I don't want to do that. A new pane with Command D on Mac, which is similar to what you do in other terminal editors or terminals. And that way I can have two agents working on their own. So they act a little bit autonomous here. And of course, I've got all the safeties on, so it asks me before certain commands, and not every command, but certain commands I think we're like deleting or installing commands, it'll ask. It's semi-intelligent in that regard, and you can change all that in the settings where you can go into the typical, basically like typical that you would have in every other IDE. Man, these settings are small, small fonts. So yeah, permissions, to create. What about creating plans? It always asks. I would say agent decides. It's just a plan. Agent decides. Execute commands. Agent decides. So. And there's commands deny list. So don't use wgets, don't use removes, don't start bash shells, don't run curls. So you can add whatever you want. It's got MCP support, which I'll maybe put into another video. But lots of people are making warp videos right now, so I wasn't going to make one. But now I feel like, gosh, I kind of have to, because I'm in no way an expert on it, because I haven't been using warp primarily. But I'm all in on this. So, and everything I've been using so far is free. It is using Claude Sonnet through Warp subscription, and you get a certain limited amount free. So you can, I'm guessing, I don't know if you can put in your own, actually. I've not tried using it locally with Docker Model Runner or Olama, but maybe. I also haven't done voice input, which is my next fun thing to try, because I'd actually love for it to talk back to me. One of the big challenges with people in these agents right now is that you can't really context switch. So if you have the agent running and it's asking for approvals, you can't easily context switch to something else, like reading email or whatever, watching YouTube. and then when it prompts, it needs something. So then you got to go back to it. Well, that really isn't solved here yet. That's kind of where it has notifications. So it will notify me on screen. So it'll pop up when it needs my attention if I'm in another app. So that works okay. I think I wouldn't mind having it some sort of audio interface so that I could switch to my browser, go do some things, and it's talking to me in the background on things it's doing. Like, that would actually be pretty fun, so that I could semi-context switch. Anyway, I've got a lot to play with there, so that's going to be fun. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's get to my next announcement. I got to get tea before this. Let's see. Sid Hulu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. CIT Hulu. Sid Hulu. I run a professional services company, and there are so many internal apps and administrator to administrate everything. I'm liking the concept of Warp as a way to interact with multiple APIs without bothering with front ends. Yeah, I agree. That, like, I can see that in my future, especially when we have MCPs, and especially, so I don't have any MCPs in here yet, but in theory, if you just don't care about security, we'll get to that in a little bit. If you don't care about security of MCP, because it can kind of be a double-edged sword, you could just come in here and connect your infrastructure, connect your AWS account, connect your Kubernetes API, all these things through MCP, and you can see mine is blank. But I could add one, and then I think I can actually add Docker Engine as an trying to think. I can add. I have to think about that for a minute. But yeah, like Dagger has a thing called container use, which I'm interested in working on with this. Because right now this all runs things on my host OS, and I'm a little bit nervous. I'd love to give AI just free access to do whatever it wants, delete whatever it wants, install whatever it wants to get the job done. But I don't want to let it do that on my host system. So all these tools right now, they all do things. Claude Desktop, everything is running on your host and will screw your host up. I've watched it happen. I've had to like hit the escape key to get out quickly before it removes system directories, because eventually, if the problem goes on long enough, the AI will hallucinate and start doing crazy shit. So I'd love to do it in containers. And Dagger recently released something called Container Use, which is a new project from them that they did a keynote on at AI Engineering World Fair Day or whatever. So this is kind of like their first like project outside of Dagger. So it uses Dagger in the background, which also uses Docker and BuildKit underneath. So this is a purely Dockerized, containerized solution. But the whole goal of it is that you can use it with all of your agents, and they will do their things inside a container rather than on your host OS. So I'm looking forward to making some more content on using Warp plus container use so that everything is protected, and then I can give the AIs complete control, just go crazy. I don't care because it's a container. You're not going to hurt anything. There's a lot of questions I have, but luckily Dagger is starting to post videos on their YouTube, so you can go over to YouTube. And you can go over their channel, and I don't want actual daggers. How do we do this? Dagger IO? Maybe I need to search Dagger IO. There we go. And the team has been putting out so they've got a video on Warp right here. So I'll encourage you to go check that out. We had Solomon on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I will probably have more of their team on. New content on YouTube, yes. So this is all on YouTube. There is a course coming. Let's get to the course. And then we can come back and talk about this stuff, because I want to definitely share that. And it's almost 2 hours in. So I am launching the wait list for a new course on GitHub Actions, but using AI. So this course solves 3 main goals for me and people who want to care about GitHub Actions. Is one, a 2025 version of a course with all the bells and whistles, quizzes, assignments, project-based, but it's using all the latest GitHub Action features. So it's good for new people that need to learn GitHub Actions. Migrating over from other tools, how runners work, how reusable workflows work. And by the way, I've been teaching GitHub Actions for years. I actually had a course we did in 2023. So if you go to my GitHub, you will notice all sorts of GitHub examples in popular repos. I have this repo, 300 stars, this GitHub action template for Docker build with 46 stars. I don't know why I'm telling you stars. Who cares? I have a superliner one, and then is it this one? I always get, and this another one here, and so I have a lot of. Oh wow, okay, that link is bad. I got to fix that. Docker build workflow, maybe. No. Anyway, I've got a lot of these, and I was teaching them all in a course in 2022, but that was a live course. We were doing cohorts. People were joining me live on Zoom, and so I couldn't get it to everyone. And of course, it was expensive. I think that was like $800 to get into there or something like that. So not everyone could get there. Not everyone had the time. It wasn't always available at the right time because I would have to do it during my waking hours. And of course, like I said, it was expensive, and it was kind of meant to be. It was kind of meant to be like the next best thing to consulting. It's cheaper than consulting and hiring me as a consultant to do your GitHub Actions, but we would have time together. So we're changing it up. And where did it go? Where did it go? All right. So the wait list is here. I will send it out. If you jump on the wait list, you will get benefits. So you will get a few emails from me as the course progresses. You will get discount coupons, and you will get early access to the course when we're going to launch a early preview, essentially. So as I'm building out the course, once I get to a certain extent, a certain number of videos, I'm not sure what the magic number is, when I feel like it's worth doing, we're going to launch in the weeks ahead the early access with a discount and some special things where we're going to like meet every couple of weeks, maybe every week, and have sort of an office hours talking about stuff in the course. But the third part of this course, so we're talking about for beginners, it's all going to be in there. For people that have maybe been using GitHub Actions and they know a certain amount, but they want to expand their knowledge, they want to maybe use more reusable workflows, more templates, maybe reusable workflows inside reusable workflows because you can nest them. They want to do more automation across repos. Maybe they want to run their own runners. Maybe they want to try third-party runners that are faster. Like all that stuff's going to be in there. But the third pillar is AI. And the big question is, I mean, yes, we can all use AI to write code, and GitHub has got features that they're releasing recently around, assign, if you have the Copilot high-end $40 a month version, you can assign PRs to an AI agent inside of the GitHub UI, and it will work on it. It will give you a PR back. Those are all built-in features, but there's all this third-party stuff. There's tons of AI workflows and actions. And so which one of those suck? Because a lot of them suck. A lot of them I would never put in production. It's wild, wild west right now when it comes to AI actions. And so the third pillar is me spending a bunch of time both playing it with myself, talking to other people that are trying this stuff, figuring out what works, what is risky, what is safe, what shouldn't you do, what should you do with AI and GitHub Actions, and that's going to be in this course. So it's going to be a big one, and it's going to take me months to build it out. So we're going to start early, and I'm also going to be spending more time on some of the live streams here on YouTube as I'm building the course. So for those of you that just can't wait, you got to get in and learn this stuff as soon as possible. I'm going to be trying to do some of that on YouTube. But the course is going to be a paid course. It's not going to be on Udemy. I'm going to be self-hosting this course. You'll kind of notice if you look at the URL here, you will notice that it is courses.bretfisher.com. And that is where we're going to be looking at launching our future courses. This is the first of many that I'm planning on. And Alex has already signed up. What's up? Thanks, man. Um, so yeah, and of course, I want to know what you're interested in, what you need to know about AI in your ops, AI in your CI. And so if you fill out that form and just tell me what would make this course more awesome, I am reading all of these. We've already got, I think at this point, we're nearing 500. We're over 400 signed up on the wait list, and we really haven't even announced it yet. We've kind of leaked it out in certain places. So when we open up the early access discount and all that, because if you're on that waiting list, you'll get an email notifying you that it's ready and you should check it out. We're also looking for sponsors. So if you know of a good company that works in CI and GitHub Actions and they would be interested in sponsoring a course about GitHub Actions, we are looking at sponsors. And one of the benefits of getting sponsors is that we will be able to make certain parts of the course free. And thanks to my friend Aaron Francis. If you don't know about Aaron, I'm going to just plug his stuff. Aaron's got some great courses. He's a great guy. If you're on Twitter, if you're a dev on Twitter, you probably know Aaron because he's all over. If you're a web developer particular or a database person, you might be in the circles of Aaron. But he has a couple of courses. One of them is on mastering Postgres. It's a long course. It's in-depth. He has another one on SQLite, which I thought was pretty cool because most people don't think I need a course to learn SQLite. It's basic, it's simple, right? But he has a whole big course on it with tons of content, and he also has a screencasting course. So if you want to make videos like I do or like he does, because he's got great quality, great production, he has a course on this, and it's pretty cool what he did. He brought in some friends to make certain sections of the course so that if you needed to learn screencasting to make your own videos, whether it was for work or YouTube or social or whatever, and you maybe use Premiere Pro, well, you can add that part and to your cart. Or if you use DaVinci, you can get that part. Or if you use Final Cut Pro, so it's built that the whole course is designed for all the major editors. There's not one for CapCut yet, or for my favorite Descript, but maybe someday. So that stuff's all there. And Aaron gave me the idea about finding sponsors. And so if you know of a company, we're already talking to a few of them, but if you have any suggestions, I would love that. All right. That's the announcement. Tell me whether you're excited or not. What do you think? Well, I guess if you signed up, then you're excited. Alex is excited. So we've been working on this for months. I will be working on this the rest of the year, even post-launch. We will be probably marketing it a lot, sharing a lot of the content out. And, if you're here on YouTube with me, you're going to get a lot of benefits from this course already because I will be talking about it. I'll be making some videos from the course. We'll be sharing some of the content from the course. And then as I'm learning things, I'm going to be talking about it. I can't not talk about it. But yeah, the AI part is the part I'm really excited about right now. I'm spending time on and trying to figure out where the hype, where we go from real world to hype, and like draw that line and say, okay, everything from here is just hype. It doesn't really work yet. It's kind of risky. It might go crazy. But these things are predictable, mostly fine, mostly safe. Because like this stuff is actually, it can be really good, but man, it can be really bad. Like these things, in case you haven't been seeing the news lately, maybe this is the segment where we go into a little bit of the news. But if you saw the headline, "The Dark Side of Just Hooking Up," um, this is actually a great primer for multiple problems we are seeing in the industry right now because of the way that AI or LLMs work specifically. And the core problem with this is that the AI doesn't know the difference between the control plane or the control layer and the actual work it needs to do. You're feeding everything to it in the same context window. That's system prompts, that's your user prompt, that's all the MCP stuff, like everything's going to it, and it doesn't know what is um, something that is rules that should never be broken, can never be broken, and things that are fungible or the work that needs to be done. And this leads to problems with prompt injection. And I've been hearing about prompt injection for years. And I'm like, it's all fine. As long as I don't run random source code on the internet and I trust the things I'm running from reputable companies, I'll be fine. Right? 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 We'll be fine. Well, it turns out we're not fine. Turns out we're not fine. Alex, I noticed that you are also broadcasting on Twitch. Are you favoring one over the other? I'm not. I just, I don't really have a following on audience or audience on Twitch. I've had that account and I've twitched off and on for 6 years, something like that. Said Hulu's a fan on Twitch, evidently. So, yay, one more subscriber, right? That makes 10 or whatever. I don't know how many I have on Twitch, but it's really no reason I couldn't. And I'm also actually today live streaming on LinkedIn as well. So I'm actually doing all three. I would do it on Twitter as well, but Twitter you have to pay to do that. So I'm not going to pay them. So I just wanted to see if I could pick up some more audience that maybe isn't staring at YouTube all day like I do. And maybe they're on Twitch, maybe they're on LinkedIn and they're scrolling and they see it on LinkedIn. So yeah, we'll see what works. But no, absolutely, most of my audience is absolutely on, like in order of audience, it's YouTube at the top, and then LinkedIn, and then way, 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 way down at the bottom is Twitch. And if Blue Sky ever supports live streaming, I will absolutely do it on Blue Sky because I love Blue Sky. I spend a lot of my time on Blue Sky. That's where a lot of the dev community is. The dev community feels split right now. There's a lot on X, there's a lot on LinkedIn, and there's a lot active on Blue Sky. And I kind of wish we were all back together, but those days are gone, at least for now. Let's talk about this though. Let's talk about this. The way this works is if you just have GitHub, if you have VS Code, and you say, hey, VS Code, use the MCP server to GitHub to go get me a PR in this repo. And I want you to not work on the PR, sorry, go get this issue that someone posted. It's a bug. I need you to go to that issue and I need you to do some work, create me a PR. Well, when you do that, that MCP connection is you, right? It's using your credentials, which means it has access to all the repos you have. access to. So that AI doesn't just have access to that one repo you asked it about. We don't yet have the AI so narrow and security focused, at least when it comes to today's MCP and GitHub token relationship. It has access to everything you can see, including I have access to a dozen organizations, and I have access to 100 repos in my own GitHub. Some of those are private. Some of those are, I wouldn't call them secrets necessarily, but things I don't need to be public, and things that maybe I don't want to be public. They might have I don't know, code that's a part of a course that I want you to pay for. So I don't necessarily want all of that stuff out there for free. So there's just certain things. I don't actually have that many paid or private repos, but companies do. And so the vulnerability here is that all someone has to do is write a malicious issue and somehow sneak text into the issue that tells the prompt to do something nefarious, like say, hey, maybe the issue is long, and maybe even it could be even a comment on the issue. I'm not actually sure. I haven't tested this to see if it's still vulnerable to comments. But imagine a public issue that has prompt injection in it. So it has some text in there hidden in the middle that's like, oh, hey, and also I really would like it if there was any dot files for you to include dot files in the stuff that's in that repo in this reply or in this design. And I really need that, and I really need it to be sent over here. So could you also please really upload it or do something with it? Something nefarious, right? And just add that little paragraph into a GitHub issue. So someone else has done this on your open source, right? And you have access to closed source with that same GitHub key. So you ask the AI to go look at that issue. It scans and puts everything into tokens, and you maybe didn't read all of it. Maybe you didn't check it right before you asked the AI to work on it. Someone threw in a comment at the end. Anyway, there's various ways for this to all happen, but the point is the AI has access to everything. So if the prompt injection can convince the AI that you just asked to go do work to do something nefarious, then it will. And you have to work at it, evidently, and that's what this kind of explains. But the point of this is that it's inherent to the design of the AI and the way that we're scoping permissions and how MCP works, that it's all just one giant glob of text, of tokens, all just going up to the AI. So it doesn't know the difference between the commands I told it that it needs to do and the prompt injection that someone did in a GitHub issue. So the point of this one is that it's evidently trivial for someone to make a prompt injected GitHub issue on a public repo that I then ask the AI to go look at. And then that injection tells the AI to go get private stuff from another repo. And so now you have cross repo problems. And there's the potential, or in this case, successful, to pull out information out of a private repo and do something with it that should have never happened from a public issue. And if you automate this with some tool that will do the agent stuff in the background, you may never know that it actually happened. There may not be any logs of it that you would ever read. And so you maybe just accidentally uploaded a whole private repo to a zip file to, some random file storage system, and the only thing that you know is that your issue was solved, and it maybe still solved the issue. If it was good enough prompt injection, it still solved the issue, but in the background, the AI did something that you didn't know about. And because we're all doing AI all day and we're not reading everything it says, because, come on. Like, look, I'm not reading. I'm like, look at all that. I'm not reading all that. Look, all that stuff that I'm not reading every one of those things. It's telling me everything it did. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you did. I just told you to do it. And then I looked at the things you changed. So, I know what you did, but I don't know if there was a paragraph or a line there that said, oh, I also uploaded, I used wget or, SFTP or whatever. I also did that and zipped up this other repo and sent it to another place on the internet because you asked me to. Like, that might just be a bullet point in here, and it wouldn't require any code changes to my repo. So if I didn't read every single thing it did and every single command it ran, I would have missed it. I would have missed that. And that's a problem. But it's here. It's in the thing. We don't have any protection for it. The only way I can see protection is that at MCP runtime, at the point of which I ask an AI to do something with an MCP tool, that there is a kind of like what we have with GitHub Actions, a very specific token that's issued by GitHub that only has scope for the repos that I asked it to handle, and only the permissions in that repo, like maybe read only. Maybe it doesn't have permissions to write to main branch, even though I have permissions to write to main branch. It only has permissions to create a PR on a different branch, right? So I needed to give it super tiny permissions to read and only do this. And we do that in GitHub Actions today. Like in a GitHub Action, we have security. By the way, you'll learn that in the course. You'll learn all about permissions, because that's one of my favorite things, is to lock that stuff down so that every one of my GitHub Actions is as secure as possible. And I'll have at least a section on that, probably more than one section. So anyway, that's a problem. And so I've been tracking that. I've been tracking the news on that, and I think that's relevant to those of us in doing DevOps and platform engineering. So anyway, that's some of the news. So I will hopefully have some new podcast episodes out on the Agentic DevOps podcast. Please go and like and subscribe on that. That's over here, agenticdevops.fm. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about on the podcast, right? None of this hand-wavy Gemini 2.5 Pro can be faster than blah, blah. Who cares? I don't care. I mean, that's all like stuff that changes every couple of weeks. So why even bother telling everybody about it? Because by the time they hear it, it probably isn't a problem anymore. I'm more interested in the long-term problems and actually how to make use of all these tools for real business work. So yeah. All right. So you have a job to do, people. Go sign up for the go subscribe to the podcast. Go sign up for the course. This is by the way, the first course in 3 years, I think, or in 2.5 years. So get on it. And because there's more coming after this. I'm not really sure what the next course will be. We'll have to get through this one, but I have a list. One is just like AI DevOps of everything, which sounds like impossible. Like when would that course ever finish? It would be everything. But also maybe an Argo CD with AI course because Argo CD now has an MCP server. So we could tell the AI, hey, go check out the status. When was the last time in Argo that it actually deployed anything, right? Like you can ask questions to the MCP. So I'm excited to dive into Argo CD because that's one of my favorite tools for Kubernetes. And I made a course on that 3 years ago, but that was another live course. And I'm not doing that anymore because it takes up a lot of time. So we're hopefully going to work on that. But this one's the first one. And this is all I'm going to be talking about for like at least 3 more months. So hopefully you like GitHub Actions, because that's what I'm going to be doing. And we're going to have guests on the show. By the way, coming up on this show in the next few weeks, I'm going to have Normal back on. We're going to have Embrace here talking about observability for mobile apps. We're going to talk about that. We're going to, of course, have more AI guests and people talking about using AI in DevOps. That is going to be a continued theme all year long, which is why we now have 2 podcasts. And that's going to be it. So any other questions before I jump off this live stream? I'll give you a second to think about it. So yeah, I hope you're as excited as I am. Maybe not. Maybe not. I get it. It's just another thing. You got to learn it. But I actually don't know the answers. I don't even know yet how many videos on AI I'm going to have, because I don't know exactly everything that works yet. Like the things I'm trying can work in some cases, but they have side effects and weirdness, maybe not for everyone. So I don't really know how it's all going to come to fruition. So I'm excited. It's hard to sleep at night because I keep thinking about this stuff. And I wonder what if we could do a cross repo something with AI that automates some of the tediousness of deployments. Or what if we could have commit messages automatically rewritten with more intelligence in the commit message? Oh, but that changes, and then you have problems with people trying to push code to a repo or a branch that's changed, and those kind of negative effects. So there's a lot of things I've been playing with that could be interesting, but also not great with the way that GitHub and Git works in general. Like if you have AI out there constantly changing code that I'm also working on, we're in the same branch, like that could be a problem. So yeah, lots of things to figure out. All right. So now course, new podcast, everything's AI. And I am real, and I will see you next week on YouTube Live or before, because remember, going to be starting to casual stream some of those videos I'm making. So stay tuned to all things AI on this channel. And like and subscribe. Please do like and subscribe. That's the only way you're going to know when I go live is you subscribe, click that little bell, and then you will get notified when I go live, which isn't every day. So you'd never really know. It's based on my schedule. So I'm not a Twitch streamer full time, so I don't do it every day, all day. At least not yet. At least not until the AI replaces all of us, and that's the only thing left for us to do is just stream life as we stare at the AI console while it does all the work. Then that might be coming soon. All right. See you next time. Ciao.